Hi everyone, I am Chandra and today I am very happy to welcome a very important personality from AWS right here in AWS Summit, Bangalore. So I'm meeting with Sebastian. He is developer advocate for AWS and he has very interesting personality and this is what caught my attention. And today this is the reason I am interviewing someone who interviews everyone. I'm someone who podcasts everyone. So with this message, Sebastian, most welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. And yes, indeed, I'm the interviewer usually, so it's a bit weird for me to see.
Yeah, that's why we are starting down the table.
Exactly.
All right. Okay, so let's just start with the journey with your AWS. How did you get started with AWS?
I joined AWS like 12 years ago, which makes me a dinosaur at AWS because, 12 years, it was the beginning of the cloud, literally. And I wanted to join since much longer, like 15 years ago at the very beginning of AWS. So I tried to apply it several times. I failed. And finally, they got me in. And I joined as a technical trainer. So I was the very first AWS technical trainer in Europe, Middle East, and Africa. And we developed the training business. We were two in the training organization at the very beginning.
Wow, just two.
My manager and me. And then we hire a training assistant that helped to book the sessions and to find a customer. And so we were three. Then we hire more technical trainers. We also set up the program that allows to validate a technical trainer. You're a technical trainer, so you have to go through validation.
It's a little process for sure.
To be a trainer. So we set up the initial version. I'm sure today it's very different from what it used to be like 10 years ago. But that was fun. That was the early beginning, like a startup mode for a very large company.
Very interesting. So very nice role to start with. How many times did you fail before making to this role?
I applied 2 times. My first attempt was the role of developer advocate, which I am not. So it took me like 6 or 7 years to reach that. It was the first developer advocate in Europe as well. And I made a phone interview with a guy that say, hey, pretend you're in front of an audience and please describe me the advantage of the cloud. And I was totally not prepared for that. I miserably failed. And so they say no, and they hire someone else. And that was good. And then like a year later, there was a job for a solution architect. Again, the very first solution architect in EMEA, in Europe, Middle East, and Africa. I was a bit further in the interview process. They invited me in the office in the headquarters. It was in Luxembourg at that time, the middle of Europe. I didn't make to the loop. They hire someone else, a great guy. He's not at AWS anymore, and he built the entire SA organization in Europe. So my message here, if you want to apply at Amazon, do not let me rephrase that. If you want to apply at Amazon, try several times. You might fail 1 or 2 times. It's normal. Just continue applying. We are looking for different profile, different seniority level. So if you are not fitting for one specific profile at a specific moment, just try a bit later because it might work. And once you're inside the company, it's much easier to move than to get in. So the hard part is to get in. So try to find a door to get in. And once you're in, you can move, and the proof is now I am developer advocate since 2019, so I'm doing the job for which I applied the very first time.
So message you don't apply for that role immediately. Apply something you can get easily and then move.
And I'm grateful for that because my time as a technical trainer obliged me to learn everything about AWS service, to have a deep knowledge of how the foundational service like EC2 autoscaling, EBSIM works. And I can reuse that knowledge now as a developer advocate as well.
Oh, interesting. Let's talk about the early days of training because then people won't even know cloud. So it's hard to teach them what is cloud. If they don't know what is cloud, why to learn?
Yeah, the type of technical discussion we had with customer at the time was really different. Now we talk about optimization, AI, more advanced use case. But back 12 years ago, it was really the beginning of the cloud. So some companies like Netflix were already all in. That was like the North Star that everybody was looking at. But for most European companies, they were still wondering why would we go put all assets or software assets or data to someone else, and Amazon is a retailer, it's not a cloud provider. But yeah, I'm buying books or CDs or DVD at the time. So it was an interesting discussion. And yes, we had to explain the basics, like virtualization was well known, of course, but it was more VMware at the time on premises. So talking about EC2, talking about the fact that an instance can disappear at any time and you have to rebuild it from scratch and to automate. That was really a new concept. But once people get it, it was like an epiphany for them, saying, oh, yes, I understand auto-scaling. Maybe you remember that phrase saying, treat your machine, your EC2 instance, as a cows and not as a cat. So treat them as something that you can just tag them with a number, then they can disappear, you can get a new one. You have to treat the group as a group and not get attached to the machine. Because remember at the time, on premises, you start a machine, you give it a fixed IP address, you give it a name. Why would you want to give a name to a machine? And you keep that machine up and running as long as possible, almost forever. And the cloud was very different. It changed that mentality.
Oh, awesome. So what was the most interesting part of you being the technical trainer back in 1560?
I travel a lot. Amazon is a great travel agency for the employees.
You are in India, no wonder.
I am now in India, but I deliver training all over Europe, Middle East, Africa. I went to South Africa, I went to Taiwan, I went to North America, so I travel a lot, and I had to learn a lot, because when I joined there was only one class, the architect class, but after a while they had others, developers, sysops, advanced DevOps, so I had to learn all these things. Chef, puppets were big things at the time. They are not so much anymore, I think, but I had to learn a lot. So, and that's something I still enjoy today at Amazon. Every day I'm learning something else. While doing my interviews with customers, I'm very curious. I'm learning new technologies. Right now it's generative AI, LCP servers and everything. I don't know what tomorrow will be, but that's the fun thing. It's learning.
Very interesting. I can relate to something what I feel when I am teaching in the classroom, the way you were saying, like, seeing the light, seeing the eyes of the student. Oh, wow, this works. So that's a very
and that's something really physical. You when you do in-person training in a classroom, you see what I call the light bulb moment. You see in the eyes of the participant the moment when they understand, when they say, "Oh, yes, wow, that will change the way I'm working." And it's a physical reaction. And as a trainer, I love to see that in the eyes of the participants.
Very interesting. Light bulb. That's a very nice word. Nice term for light bulb moment.
Like in a cartoon.
Awesome. Which countries you travel as a trainer?
45. I took a count.
45?
Yeah. So most European countries. From Spain to Sweden, Norway, Lithuania, blah, blah, blah. Poland, Hungary. Yeah. Most of Europe. I went to South Africa twice. I've been to North America. I've been to Taiwan. That was for the train. No, 45 is not for training, to be correct. 45 in total. Yeah. Because after, as a developer advocate, I continue to work in Mexico, in Latin America, and now in India, you see. Yeah. I told you, Amazon is an amazing travel agency for the employees.
Travel agency, nice job. You are setting really high goal for me, because I also like traveling. Mm-hmm. I'm also a trainer. Now I'm going to talk to my account manager. Why my numbers are so low?
It's funny to keep a list of all the countries you've been. I have some discussion with my wife about that, because I count Vatican as a country and Monaco as a country, and she said, "No, that's too small. That doesn't count." But yeah, politically, technically, it's a country.
Interesting. Awesome. So great to know, because, being fellow instructor, I'm also AWS authorized instructor. I can feel like what the life could have been like 10 years ago, 15 years ago that you're mentioning. So amazing to know that. Okay, awesome. So let's transition your role from being a trainer to solution architect. So as you told, like you were in solution architect role with Alexa.
Yes.
So let's talk about that role.
If we rewind to 2016, it was the very beginning of Alexa, and I met Alexa in a hackathon, where a room where you put a bunch of geeks for 24 hours with pizza and coffee, and you see what's coming out of that. And one of the team used Alexa because you can create application for Alexa. It's called a skill. And I discovered that voice assistant that Amazon was commercializing in the US. It was not available in Europe yet. I said, wow, that's the future. It's a computer I can talk to. It looked like Star Trek to me. And actually, Star Trek is one of the inspiration of Alexa. And I said, I want to work for that. And being part of Amazon, I told you it's quite easy to change role. So I start to look at the different teams at Alexa. At the time, they were building teams to launch Alexa in Europe. So it was like 6 months, 1 year before the very first introduction of Alexa in Germany and UK. These were the two first countries. I met the hiring manager. We get along quite together. The role was in London, so they asked me if I can move to London. It was a moment of my life where I can say, yes, I moved to London. So I packed my bag, rent an apartment in London, and I lived in London for 3 years. We were solution architects. So our role were to help businesses to build application for Alexa. When we open Alexa in a new country, there is an app store for Alexa application. It's called a skill store. And so we work with a few flagship customer. In UK, it was like the BBC or Just Eat, the food company, gaming and other stuff like that, to ensure that there are some big names that are there in the App Store the day we are going to ship the first device in the UK. And we built a team in UK, Germany, and then shortly after it expanded to Italy, Spain, and France.
Oh, wow. That's amazing. Sounds amazing. So how was the transition? Like being an instructor, being a trainer, or being an architect?
It's almost the same. Now, the difference is that you're not in front of your customer for 3 days, but the idea is always the same. It's to answer a question, it's to teach, to explain, to show them how to create a skill. At the time, it was how to create a user experience with voice only. What is the right way to prompt the user to ask something to the customer? How to create a user interface with voice only. That was new. So I bought a lot of books. I read a lot about that, and part of the time was teaching about user experience. That's not very technical, and part of the time was teaching the API of Alexa, how to create a lambda function that interacts with Alexa, the type of API. It was changing every week as well. We had a new device with a screen, so it changed the API because now you can put an image on the answer as well, and then video and interact with gadgets over Bluetooth. So it was an ever-changing field as well, just like AWS. And the deployment of the skills, most of the time, it's on AWS. Technically, it can be anywhere, but most of the customers were deploying on Lambda. So I kept the ground in AWS, and all the things that I know before from AWS about serverless, about permissions, about DynamoDB, were directly reusable as an essay for Alexa.
Nice. What was your most interesting Alexa skill which comes to your mind?
Oh, that's a good question. I really enjoy working with Starbucks. So it was mainly a project driven by my colleague in US, but we had to adapt it for London as well. And I didn't know that there are hundreds, like more than 600 combination of coffee, one shot, single shot, different types of milk, different type of additions, small, large. So it's super hard actually to order a coffee over voice. So in terms of user experience, that was quite interesting to work with. I developed also a couple of skills like tell jokes and did experimentation. I worked with IKEA to implement their first connected light bulb, and they choose, thanks to me and the team at the time, they choose Amazon login as well. So when you bought at the time a light bulb from Alexa, and if you want to have it connected online, you have to authenticate with Amazon login. Now they also support Google login and others, but at the very beginning, it was the integration with the IoT platform from AWS. That was a really nice proof of concept that we had to develop with them.
It's awesome. So how was that, how was it to convince someone to start using voice instead of the normal screen and all for these kind of interactions?
We had a team of fantastic people in the business development. So it was their job to convince the customer to go over voice. The solution architects jumped in just after to show how to do it technically. But I think everybody agreed that voice is the most natural way. What are we talking? What are we doing? So we're talking, and that's the first thing you learn when you're with your mom as a baby. It's the most natural way to interact with other people, and I think in the future it will be the most natural way to interact with computer as well. Look at GenAI and the Amazon Nova model. We released a few weeks ago Nova streaming, where you can stream voice and it responds with voice as well. So it's a large language model, not based on text and image. It's based on voice. So I think we are going to see more and more of these things in the future.
Very interesting, because since you mentioned future and GenAI, I believe Alexa is one of the most successful hardware product from Amazon.
Probably it is in numbers. You're right.
Yeah, I mean, you go to any household, even a small household, my friends and all, almost half of them you'll see a small kid interacting with Alexa. In India, you like ask them to play some Bollywood music, some songs and all of that. So this device is everywhere. Where do you see the potential with generative AI with Alexa?
Yeah, there is a huge potential, because when generative AI came like 2 years ago, the poor Alexa look to be old. Okay, it's previous generation of technology, and recently Amazon introduced Alexa Plus. It's only in the US right now, and it's a paying option, part of the Amazon Prime subscription. So everybody that has Prime has access to Alexa Plus, and Alexa Plus is it's the power of GenAI and agent inside Alexa. So you can have much more rich interaction with Alexa. You can ask her to do, or him, her, to do two things in the same phrase, something she cannot do until now, but a large language model can do that. And they provide a couple of agents to interact with your calendar, to interact with Uber, so you can order a taxi, to book a table at a restaurant. It's the world of agentic AI coming into Alexa, and I'm super excited to test that myself. I live in Europe; it's not available in Europe yet.
Okay.
I'm eager to see and to interact with this new version of Alexa.
Beautiful. No, definitely. I am also very excited to see what is it next for Alexa, because I have 2 or 3 Alexa devices in my home, and I say, when is GenAI coming in it?
Yeah, you can think about advanced routine based on the weather. Yeah, it opens a whole new world of possibilities.
100%. Okay. Now let's talk a bit about your role as developer advocate right now, because I believe this was your favorite role when you applied. But highly you are in
2010. Oh my gosh, that's a long time ago. The developer advocate at AWS, our goal is to inspire builders, inspire developers. So I often take the analogy of planting seeds in the brains of developer. We show the realm of possible. Hey, this is what our customers are doing, or this is the cool demo that I build with Bedrock or Amazon Q. My goal is to inspire. So it's not directly related to the sales pipeline. We are not trying to convert you to a paying customer. We are working, technically we are part of marketing, but we talk to developers, so we cannot use any of the marketing tricks. Developers are smelling that from distance. So we go and reach out to developers through technical things. So we are a bunch of very technical people, former developer, former solution architect, for example, and we go to conference, third-party conference, or AWS conference, like today here in the summit in Bengaluru, to deliver talk and demo about technology. So these days it's mostly Bedrock, AI, but we do a lot of serverless as well. So there is a part of teaching, education, there is a part of inspiration, there is a part of looking about the future, what's possible in the future. And we also manage the communities. So we have a team of people that are managing user groups, community builder, the AWS Hero program. And then going to conference was we are recording live from the summit. So you might hear some background music that will not disappear before post-processing. Sorry for that. Going to conference was very pre-COVID, pre-2020 type of things. Now, after COVID, we also are very present online. We have teams dedicated on Instagram and YouTube doing video. I'm doing this an AWS Developers Podcast that you can find in all good podcast application. We are writing blog posts as well. I'm part of the team that writes announcement for AWS. Like today, I have the pleasure to announce a new service or a new capability of S3, for example. So I mostly do online stuff these days, podcasting, blogging.
Oh, very interesting. So what are some other programs? You mentioned about user group, you mentioned about something like community. So how can a normal developer can get connected with some of these programs so they can, kind of skill themselves, they can learn about new technologies, and they can, stay ahead with the technologies, advancements?
Yeah, it's important to be... One of the strengths of AWS is the large community of users, and we have a vibrant and passionate and diverse community in most of our countries. So you take your favorite search engine and you type AWS user groups, you will find the landing page for user group, and then you can search per country where there are user groups. Today, I have to admit that in most major cities, in developed countries, there are user groups, and if there is none, there is a link, create my own user group, and then we have tips and tricks to help you to create your own community and your own user groups. You can register your user group within the page so that it's advertised there on that page, and you will be part of the larger community. We have a dedicated Slack channels with user group leaders so that you can exchange, network, find best practice. So we have a team to help there to build your community, but to grow your community as well. Community Builder, it's a program that recognizes individuals that are contributing content. So if you write blog posts, do podcasts, video about AWS, you self-apply to become a community builder. I think there are 2 sessions per year, and you receive that badge of being community builder. You receive advantage. There is also a Slack dedicated for community builders. You're under NDA, so you can get some briefing from the service team. And AWS Hero, it's even a level higher for people that contribute a lot about AWS content. These folks have privilege, like they are being invited, flights and hotel and conference to reInvent every year. They also have pre-briefing before service launch, so they know in advance what is going to be launched in their specialty. They are part of user groups, focus group with the service team. When the service team search for early feedback about an ID or a service, they might engage with the AWS Hero to get their feedback to see. So they help really to shape the direction, the capabilities of some of our services. They are very important person in the AWS community. At reInvent, for example, we have a hero dinner. We have our CTO, Werner Vogels, that came in person to talk with them. And hero, it's like the ultimate recognition of being part of the AWS community.
Awesome. Okay, so you mentioned about in the podcast and all of that. So beyond anyone else does a podcast, I see a podcast run by you. Mm-hmm. So I would like to know the background story, how this podcast has started, what is your plan, what is your vision? Yeah. Because I see a very beautiful, nice lounge here where anyone can come and speak with you. So let's talk about this podcast.
Yeah, AWS has a lot of different podcasts. Historically, there is one run by my colleague Simon Elisha, which is like the official AWS podcast where they talk about new service and new capabilities. When I joined the Developer Advocate role in 2019, I identified a need to have a local language-specific podcast as well, because not everybody is totally fluent in English. It's totally normal. So I started a French podcast in 2019. I have 300 episodes of that and counting. My colleagues in Spanish start a Spanish podcast. There is a Russian podcast, a German podcast, an Italian podcast run by a solution architect. The one that you saw here in Bangalore and for which we have that nice studio is called AWS Developers Podcast. So we recognize that the official AWS podcasts sometimes is a bit more for decision maker. It's a bit more like marketing, talking about a new service and the business benefits of a service. The Developers Podcast, it's really a technical podcast aimed at developers, at builders. I interview customers that build cool solutions on AWS. I interview people from the service team, like the SDK team, the Cognito team, the documentation team, to talk about recent episodes that we built. I didn't create that podcast. It was one of my colleagues, David Idbitsky, that created that podcast 2 years ago. And unfortunately, he left the company. So I took over the Developer Podcast 1 year ago. We have now 164 episodes today at the time we are recording.
Oh, wow.
This. And there is one new episode every Friday in all good podcast applications, Apple, Deezer, Spotify, YouTube, you name it. I used to say if it is a good podcast application, then the AWS Developers Podcast is in the app.
Oh, very beautiful.
Thank you for highlighting the podcast.
No, why not? I believe it is a very, because, here you can have a very in-depth and a very candid conversations. Compared to if, let's say, you are sitting on a podium, you have a pre-plan, and you have a PPT, you're just following the sequence, the cadence. But here you can have a candid, natural conversations.
Exactly. I try to be driven by my curiosity. I follow what the customer is saying and dive deeper and deeper and deeper into the layers. It's audio only, so we cannot show an architecture diagram. So there is like a limit at the technical discussion we can have. But still, in 45 minutes, we can discuss in deep about the architecture, the implementation challenge. I try to let them provide an honest feedback as well. I don't want to throw flowers at AWS for 45 minutes. If something is not working, if they had specific difficulties or challenge, I ask them about that as well. We are very open. If they have like a multi-cloud architecture, we talk about their multi-cloud architecture. That's the reality of our customers today. So I'm not focus only on AWS. Sometimes I even talk about subjects that are not AWS related, like a cool open source project that can work on any cloud. It's not specific for AWS, but I think when I say it's cool for developer, I try to talk about it in the podcast.
That's what being the developer advocate is.
Yeah, AWS is not the only thing that our customers are using, and we have to recognize that. And if we come with our big show saying AWS, then we lose the trust of our customers. So let's talk about cool things that developers can do, and if it is on AWS, it's better.
No, 100%. So what is your secret sauce of doing a wonderful podcast?
Passion, curiosity. Curiosity, I think, is the most important one. It's to stay all ears and eyes open about what's happening around me. That's how I notice people that I can invite in the podcast to say, hey, that would be cool if you can come to talk about that. Most often my guests say, no, it's not interesting. Nobody will be interested by that. I say, what? No, you did something really cool. Come and share with the rest of the community. And yeah, stay open-minded.
100%. What are your top interest areas right now to do podcast?
My technical interest right now, it's in a very niche area. I discovered a few years ago the Swift programming language, and I'm very much involved into the Swift community. And most of people think about Swift as the Apple things to develop iOS application, but it's a general purpose programming language that has tons of quality. It's compiled, it's efficient in terms of memory, there is no garbage collection, it's strongly typed with static typing, so it's a very good language to develop on the server as well. So I'm creating a lot of content to help developer to write Swift application and deploy them on AWS, like on Lambda, for example. So it's not related to the podcast, but you asked me about my personal interest right now. That's the time I spend a lot of time on open source Swift project. I contribute, I maintain a couple of these, like the Lambda runtime for Swift, for example.
Very nice. So I see you coming all the way from UK,
Belgium. I'm from Belgium.
Oh, you're right in Belgium, all the way to India.
Yeah.
So what motivated you?
What motivated me? Traveling and discovering new country. I remember I keep my list of countries, and India was not on that list, so I wanted to come. But more seriously, we are here in Bangalore. It's the worldwide capital of software. it's probably the city where there is the most software developer, and I'm creating content for developers. So it's natural for me to come and to meet developer. I love to meet the people there. They are passionate and they are very engaging. We talked with a lot of people yesterday at the summit, and I'm sure today we are going to meet even more. So it's super good experience for me. And the goal was to discover also the AWS Developers Podcast, so that we have more subscribers and more listeners, and then interview a couple of our community builder and community hero. They have a theater here at the summit, so they deliver talk, and after the talk they come here and we repeat their talk, but with a bit more depth, because we have 45 minutes to go through the technical subject. So it's an easy way for me also to grab content for the coming weeks for the podcast. So if you're subscribing to the AWS Developers Podcast, in the coming weeks and months, you will hear a lot of Indian community builder and AWS hero talking about serverless, talking about SageMaker, talking about Bedrock, agents. That's the type of subjects that we are recording, that we were recording yesterday and are recording today.
Beautiful. That's good to hear. Awesome. So let's talk about some of the topics that you have done podcast in this summit today.
Sorry for the music here; it's very loud. That's the challenge of recording live. The topics that I have in the developer podcast, recent episode that worked really well was one episode talking about a few topics that worked really well in the recent episode. One is about Amazon Bedrock and agents. It's a very hype topic right now in IT. So I invite two startup solution architects that explain how to create your own agent and MCP server and use them with Bedrock. Another one in the same team was how to deploy your own large language model on AWS. Imagine that you customize your model, or you find a model which is not available on Bedrock, like the next brand new shiny open source things, and you want to use it on AWS. What are your options? I had an interview with the director of AWS documentation explaining what they are working on to improve the documentation, and what are the latest change they bring to the documentation to make the documentation more useful. I had an interview with the director of the SDK explaining how AWS managed to generate SDK in 13 different languages covering 300 plus services. If you think about it in terms of engineering and organization, that's a massive product release. We as developer, we take that as granted. Oh yes, I just pip installed Boto 3 and okay, here I am. No, there is a lot of people working behind the scene to make that happen. So that was a quite interesting episode as well. I had an interview with an AWS community builder that achieved 12 AWS certification and has the golden jacket.
Oh wow!
So when you manage to go through 12 AWS certification, you might qualify to receive a golden jacket. It's like a distinctive sign for these people, and I'm full of admiration for these people, because one, AWS certification is not easy to achieve, and 12 in domains as different as networking, security, DevOps, yes, AI. You have to be like a superhero to do that.
For your knowledge, I am also 8x. I'm 4x away. So yes, I hope I do it.
Yeah, there was a time I managed to get 5 certification, and at the time it was all the AWS certification, but that let them expire. So right now I think I just have associate, which architect associate, which is still valid. But yeah.
Also, no, this is great. So, how is your experience so far in AWS India Summit?
It's packed, it's crowded, and yeah, there's a lot of people. It's very warm. The food is very spicy, more spicy than Indian food in Europe. I think they are making a separate version for European restaurants. It's not the.
So you are ready to try the authentic one.
Exactly. Actually, in UK, in London, there are really good Indian restaurants as well. But outside of Europe, it's like adapted to the local taste. It's not the same as here. It's good. I love the food here. And as I told you, the people are very passionate, eager to learn and to discover. I had that discussion with my colleague yesterday. In some in North America and in Europe, sometimes people say, "Oh, well, yeah, that's yet another technology," and I don't know. Here, I feel the vibe. I feel the passion, the willingness to work, to learn, even from young people. I talked with a few students that were here yesterday, and there is a lot of energy, and I love that because it feeds me as well.
Very interesting. How long you are in India?
For a week. So after the summit, I'm flying to Vadodara. I hope I pronounce the city
You're right there.
correctly, where I will be the guest on 2 podcasts, I think. And on Saturday morning, there is a meetup. I will present a talk about generative AI and customization of large language model. That's for Saturday morning. And then I'm flying back to Bengaluru to take my flight back to Europe on Sunday.
Oh my God, so excited. Have you made any plans to go out somewhere, try something?
That's the problem. When you're traveling a lot for work and you have a family, you cannot extend your stay. So typically my business trip are arriving, hotel, conference, flight, restaurant, hotel, and then back home because I don't want to leave the family alone for too long.
No, very interesting. So do you know like AWS is a very, very big partner in Digital India initiatives. Indian government and in fact the whole Indian industry is moving towards cloud and adopting cloud and its power, its benefits to leverage the technology for the benefits of common Indian people. Because India is a very diverse and very large country with different, dozens of languages, dozens of dialects, the culture and all of that. So how do you see the impact of AWS for India, developed India?
I think the massive impact that AWS can have for anyone developing, not only in India, is actually that you can start to get and access IT infrastructure with no cost. I mean, when I say with no cost, you don't need to invest a lot of money to buy hardware to build your own data center. If you have an idea, you can deploy it serverless on AWS for almost zero. As a development platform, if you're using Lambda and DynamoDB, you can test ID without paying anything because the free tier is quite generous for that. So it helps you to test your ID and to deploy your ID. And the key to innovation is lowering the barriers for entry. The more IDs you can test, statistically, the more chance there is one ID that will succeed and become a product. So you can test quickly, you can fail fast and fail at low cost, which is an ideal environment to actually experiment and to innovate, to develop. And that's the power of the cloud. And by the way, not just the AWS cloud. It's the same with Google and Microsoft and the same. So cloud, it's really an enabler for innovation.
100%, definitely. So when are you coming back to India?
Next summit?
Can you come earlier?
No, I have no plan right now. But yes, if I have the chance, if I can manage to get a budget and to do more a podcast recording next year at the Bengaluru Summit or in another city, I don't know where the summit will be next year, probably here. Yes, I would be happy to come back, of course.
No, that's great. So, Sebastian, it was very beautiful and amazing speaking with you. I got to know about your transition, your career, the wonderful plan here with podcast, and I'm happy that you're enjoying staying here, the food and all of that. I hope that you will visit India again very soon, and we may be doing another podcast again.
It will be my pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much.
Hello.